Welcome to this week's special episode of Cup of Joe. We have new guests with us this week, and I'm going to let Lynn do the introductions.
So today we're with Caleb and Gavin. Caleb is with More Planer Works. Gavin is the area or district rep for Precision Planting. Caleb, you want to just give us a little bit of background on what More Planer Works is?
Like Lynn said, Caleb Moore started a premier precision planting dealership out of Donaldson, just south of here. Last January was my first calendar year, and within that business, dealing with all precision planting products, basic planter maintenance, deal a little bit with replacement, OEM, planter wear parts as well, disc openers, seed tube guards, really any type of tillage blade that I deal with through that company, and a lot of aftermarket repair kits for planter wear points as well. So pretty much anything on a planter, I can pretty much get any type of replacement part or wear part for it. So,
Gavin, do you want to introduce yourself and tell everybody what you do with Precision Planting then?
My name's Gavin Burgess, regional manager for Precision for Eastern Iowa. Been with Precision for about 9 years. And we work with dealers like Caleb all over our United States, really going through business development, sales strategies, and service and taking care of the customers in the field. So.
And you're also a Primrose native, correct?
I am, yeah. I'm just right down by Caleb's parents, and so this is close to home for me too.
Perfect. So as we're looking to guys to, start the planter maintenance side of stuff and going into what I would call, I guess, our preseason, what do you see most people miss on planter maintenance or inspections that our viewers would really take away from this conversation?
So the one thing that I've seen and heard a lot is visiting with a grower and looking at his planter, he goes, we rebuilt it last year, and you go through it and you're seeing, okay, you got maybe a 1/16 of an inch wear on your disc opener, so you replace disc openers, but then you start looking at everything else and picking up on the back of the row unit, parallel arms need attention, seed tube guards are almost a 1/4 inch wide, those should have been replaced a long time ago. Seed tubes have gotten ate up by disc openers because your seed tube guard's not there anymore. So I mean, there's just a lot of other components to the term rebuild other than just disc openers and maybe a new seed tube here and there. So yeah, the parallel arms are definitely the main thing that I've seen have been avoided the most, simply because it is kind of a job to repair and rebuild those, but you got to have those tight, because if you don't have those parallel arms tight, that changes your entire point of contact on that planter when it's down in the ground. You try leveling your frame on your planter, everything else, but if you don't have those parallel arms tight, how that row unit's going through the field is constantly going to be changing and moving. So that's probably the main thing that I've seen.
What are you seeing on like brushes and the V drives and things of that nature? How often are growers supposed to be going through those and replacing?
For meter wise, finger meters really need to be gone through every single year because they're just so mechanical, and it does come down to how many acres they see, but ideally finger meters every single year. Vac meters, you get into those and there's definitely not as many moving parts, but there is a lot more rubber components to those that are susceptible to the heating and cooling like we faced just this week. So seals, vac seals, I haven't seen those wear out quite as often, but those, any type of ejector or extractor you have in there, those are always making contact with the plate, high wear item there. Pretty much extractors and the belts, like in finger meters, have probably been the most high wear, and just brushes in a finger meter as well, because they're constantly getting hit every single time. So those are just a couple of high wear items I've seen that pretty much need redone every year.
When a guy's looking at his planter, and you're talking about the disc openers and all that, is there a sequence, I guess, when you're looking at stuff? Do you start at a certain point and then work your way to the front of the planter to the back? Is there any tricks that you've found out when looking at stuff? Because sometimes this working on a planter is a little bit intimidating, I guess, if you're not used to working on it. So is there any tricks, I guess, that you have? I know maybe stealing your thunder. You were talking about putting lowering it down on a board to make sure that everything was looking hunky-dory when it's pushed down versus being stuck on a gravel lot or a concrete floor.
Yep. So the one thing that like you're saying, for checking for depth, that's a quick, easy way, because what we're getting at here is across the planter, on average, you can expect to see, what, 5/8 of an inch difference?
Yeah, we see about 5/8 of an inch difference on depth when all the mechanical settings are all set to the same depth.
Yeah.
So, when you look at your book and it tells you need to be a notch 4.5 to be at 2 inches, we see 5/8 of an inch difference from average planters. We see new planters coming out of the factory that have differences, as well as used planters even have. I've seen some well over an inch of difference of what actual depth is. So
Yeah, so that's what Lynn was getting at, is checking each individual row. It's kind of a job and time consuming, but it's pretty crucial to know exactly where everything's at, because every row is going to be different on where 2 inches actually is. So you can do it just in a shop and raising and lowering the planter, but that nobody really wants to mess around with doing that. So the easiest thing that I found to do is getting a floor jack and stacking two or three 2x4s and screwing them together on each side underneath the gauge wheels, raising that floor jack up, and then obviously having a piece of plywood or something underneath those 2x4s, raising those gauge wheels up, and then finding exactly where 2 inches actually is. So that's probably been the biggest thing that guys probably forget about on their planter, is just because the book says 2 inches right there doesn't mean it's 2 inches, because how long has it been since you replaced gauge wheel arms? Because you get pitting from, well, gauge wheel arms on deers specifically, you get the pitting from the mustache making contact there. Kinsey planters, there's that socket, and inside that socket there starts to become wear in there, and there that just all that, just a 1/4 inch pit that you have inside some linkage could be the difference between 1 3/4, 2 inches, or 2 1/4. So
yeah, and to tie that all back into your guys' side of the world of germination and getting that crop up at the same time, you're really looking at that mechanical side of things and saying, if we put them all at the same depth, we make it an equal playing field in that moisture line. Because that's our ultimate goal when we pick a planting depth, is we want to be in the moisture line so that we get the heat and moisture units even to get that crop to germinate at the same time and come up together. And so we really find that being a crucial thing to make sure that everything is calibrated to 0 on those planter depths.
That's something that I've never thought about before, with the difference, and it's interesting.
I wouldn't have known if I wouldn't have went to your thing last year. So, is there any, I guess we got a lot of people with different brands out there. Is there anything specific to certain brands that you would maybe just want to point out that they need to look at? Does John Deere do something a little bit different than Case, a little bit different than Kinsey, or is it pretty much all across the board? The wear parts and the issues are all pretty similar.
no, I mean it's everything's just nut and bolt. So everything's going to have certain wear parts that you want to look at before something else, and row units are all designed a little differently. I mean, like Case's planter, their gauge wheels, when they go down, they attach in the front, whereas Deere, Kinsey, pretty much everything else, they attach at the back, so they are lifted up, not pushed up, really. But you want to get into specific row unit parts, we have all kinds of different inspection sheets for different brand of planters, and that's kind of more specific when you're right there by the planter talking about stuff, which can get a little windy doing all that. So if there's a specific question like that, anybody could reach out and visit. We can get some inspection set up.
So product-wise, what is your guys' biggest return on investment, quickest return on investment? If you were to talk about, taking an OEM planter, where's the first step that you guys would go to help improve XYZ?
I know what I'd say. Gavin, what's your first opinion?
My first opinion as a guy starting from, an OEM planter would be downforce. Hydraulic downforce control, especially as we look at our terrain here in eastern Iowa, and not even just that, but even, you get in the flatter areas of the country. Hydraulic downforce, going row by row, and managing that downforce on each gauge wheel system versus planter wide or setting a T-handled spring, really maximizes that ground contact. And that's really the goal as we think about those downforce systems, is we want them to stay in contact. We want our disc openers at the depth that we've set them at, like Caleb was talking about earlier. And knowing that we have contact with our gauge wheels on the ground ensures that. So with those downforce systems, we basically are going in and telling it, hey, I want to carry 60 pounds, 100 pounds, 120 pounds of extra weight on those gauge wheels. And that system automatically does that for us on every row. and it uses sensors on there that are measuring 200 times a second. So that system will really benefit a guy, and the more variability you have, the more benefit you get from that.
Yep. I would agree with that and piggyback off that. When we're looking at even just basic furrow creation and maintaining that sidewall so that way that we don't have any crumbling or any compaction, that hydraulic downforce or hydraulic depth control, whatever you want to call it, is consistently always maintaining that as well, because that's a big portion of downforce management is also furrow creation. So when you have too light a downforce, then you have the potential for that sidewall and furrow could be caving in before the seed even gets into the trench. That leads to inaccurate depth, uneven emergence. You got too much downforce and you're just compacting the heck out of that sidewall, then you're getting hatchet roots. You're not getting roots branching out to fertility, so then it's just that delta force really helps even just with furrow creation as well and maintenance.
So he gave his number 1. What's your number 2 then?
My number 2, what would I say? Really, probably the cheapest and highest ROI product Precision has is just a simple Keaton seed firmer too. That's easy to do. Get on your planter easily, not $40 a row. You could do it. And consistently, we've been seeing 5 to 6 bushel advantage in corn, 2 to 3 in beans with Keaton seed firmer. So that's just a cheap and easy product just to dip your toes into precision planting as well.
So there's been a lot of talks about these new products that are coming out on the market as far as chemical side with Zyway and Pivot Bio and the proven portions of that. What does Precision have out there that guys could look into to maybe utilize some of those products and get to moving forward with maybe some of this a little bit different management techniques when it comes to our crop systems?
We got props.
We got props.
So what Gavin just put up here, this is the furrow jet assembly. So right here, you got your mini firmer on there as well. So this is just your basic seed firmer, but then this is your liquid application component here. It's all covered by high wear carbide steel there, and it's got 3 different, you can see 3 different lines here, but you got 2 lines, which would be your blue, that could be coming out of your wings right here. Your red would be coming right on top of the seed. So here you have the potential to run 2 different products, really basically according to label and whatever chemistry you're trying to put on there. But it just gives you options here. And then that's the conceal knife there. Gavin can touch on a little bit of what the concealed portion is.
Yeah, so the conceal knife was originally developed more as a nitrogen application type tool on a corn planter. So it gets hidden in your gauge wheel, hence the name conceal. But it really was to allow us to be seed safe at all times. It's really a unique place to apply it because it's right next to the seed, but it's always 3.5 inches away from it because of where we're placing it. So we can really never cross over that seed line. So really, as we've done more and more research as a company into products and placement and what we can apply here, anything with a burn rate really can be moved out to this, and it benefits that crop to get more of that rate on just a little bit farther away from that seed. We've actually seen a tremendous gain these last couple of years of actually applying some starter type fertilizer in these on soybeans. And so we're doing a lot more research into that as a company, as well as we're starting to see a lot of dealers and growers start to go to that side too. So
At that 3.5 inches, do you guys have any studies talking about that Zyway style fertilizer? I mean, is that close enough for that product?
Jason Webster, Precision Planting's head agronomist, he did trials with running Zyway through the furrow jet last year and conceal. Top dog with his Zyway that he found was running Zyway through the furrow jet wings, which was just shy of 9 bushel an acre advantage over. Lowest one was running the Zyway through the conceal. He actually saw it best through the wings. Second was running the Zyway through the center. So I mean, it's supposed to be in furrow, but you saw the top one having it in furrow, but still just far enough away from the seed where there's no disadvantage to it.
yeah, so those wings actually apply that band of fertilizer about 3/4 of an inch off. And if you look at the angle of these wings, what's really unique about it is we can adjust this based off of opener wear on the planter. So we really are never going to interact. We want to run about 1/4 inch above the seed. But when we think about corn or even beans, as the root systems grow, that 3/4 of an inch is actually the agronomic angle that the roots want to grow down. And that's why we built those in that angle and that 3/4 of an inch off, so that we can put those bands and we get root interception early on in that corn plant or soybean plant's life.
I think that both of those products are going to have huge place in the industry in the next 5 years. I think we're going to see a lot of bugs that are going to be put down with the planter. We're going to be seeing a lot of stuff that's not safe being put. I mean, with stuff that we can't put in trench, that's going to have huge returns, because the genetics just continue to climb, and the potential is out there, and guys are getting better at fertility management and all these other things. And I think that both of those products are going to be pretty huge for return on investment.
Yep.
So what is your guys? I mean, it's one of my favorite things about watching the PTI farm videos is they talk about average return on investment, or for whatever that farm is in Champaign County. When you talk about the downforce, when you talk about either of these two products, do you guys have numbers in your head that you'd like to share about return on investment?
Yeah, so I mean, it really all depends on your existing application, especially when it comes to the fertility type stuff. And I think the one thing that gets missed a lot when we think about fertility and moving to a starter on a planter, if guys aren't doing that, or moving to nitrogen on the planter, is a lot of growers go ahead and apply a starter even though they've kept their fall application system the same. And so what we really try to do, like you're talking about at our PTI farm, is go through all those different studies and show them that actually you need to take away the fall application when you go to these. We can draw back from that. And you can even look at those and say, hey, you know, we can do 1.5 to 2x the impact on a per unit basis on that fertilizer with these. So we can actually draw back on our fall application even farther. And so I think that's what we really try to educate too, is not only, hey, when we make these applications and we do these changes, we get a return on investment, but we also want to show them how to make that transition across. And I think that's really where the differences come in. If we go in and we show a guy, hey, if you just completely drop your existing program and jump to this, there's a huge gain. But you've also got to stair step into some of these things. And so, I mean, you know, on average, you know, over the 5 years that FurrowJet's been out and the 3 or 4 years that Conceal's been out, we see somewhere in the 30 bushel for FurrowJet and 40 bushel averages gains with Conceal. Now, those seem like huge numbers, but that's over on average over different and existing application methods that guys are using. It could be 100% fall applied anhydrous that this is comparing to. So it's an average number that we see going up and over that. So they seem big, but if guys are doing 100% fall applied anhydrous for a nitrogen application, obviously there's going to be a huge return by going to a banding application on a planter or splitting that application up.
Well, it makes a lot of sense.
For sure. Going backwards just a little bit, so with, I guess, the times being what they are with supply and all that, and manufacturers, you know, having some issues with getting stuff. I'm sure you guys are in the same boat as everyone else, but I mean, do you guys see an advantage on, you know, maybe a guy buying a 10-year-old planter and going to, say, Precision versus, you know, going to I'll just pick on them, say John Deere or Case, and buying a new one. Case would probably be a little bit different because they've got that option, but we'll just pick on John Deere. I mean, do you guys talk about a lot on that? I mean, is that something where there's a pretty good, you know, savings cost for a guy to you know, switch out a whatever John Deere they have to go to a VSET and Delta Force and that kind of stuff? Or is that you know, new is great?
No. I would much rather be putting a high-speed setup on a 2005 1760. But that's the great thing about precision planting is you don't, with going an OEM route or something like that, buying a brand new planter, it's that entire cost of those products at once. With precision planting, say, you can make it cash flow so much easier, because 1 year you're saying, okay, I want to get to high speed, or I want to get to liquid in-furrow application. Where's the best place to start? Best place to start, number one, is let's just get a 2020 in your cab. Let's just start there, use that to monitor. You're still going to be running your hex shafts or however you want to do it if you want to add another product in right away. But that's just the greatest thing about precision planting, is you can do everything in steps. You don't have to do everything at once. So much more cost effective, and like I said, that can cash flow a lot better for an operation.
Yeah, and our dealers actually now have the ability, you to basically build planters from the ground up, from scratch. And so what's really unique about that situation is they can pick out the bar they want, they can pick out the row units they want, and then they start picking out the individual components to completely build that planter. And in the end, you also have no nuts and bolts left over, is the ultimate goal. And so going to an OEM like you were talking about and ordering a planter and then wanting to try to retrofit some of this stuff on it, it never fails. You end up with a pallet full of random parts on your shelf that you don't have anything to do with and maybe isn't useful for somebody else, or it's hard to get rid of. So yeah, let alone being able to rebuild existing planters, our dealers have the opportunity to custom build planters for guys. And that's becoming really popular too.
So to go back just a little bit, you were talking about starting with the 2020 monitor. Do you have a lot of guys that split half a planter wise? Where do guys get started? I mean, we talked about the biggest return on investment is the downforce, but do most guys jump on the V-drive first, or what tests do you guys see guys do?
Yeah, so with trying to split up and do half a planter's worth, that's the part that kind of gets kind of tricky. With doing hydraulic downforce or any of those what we call SRM-based systems, which is the canned communication precision planting uses across their system to make everything function, control, all those components. On that kind of stuff, we can't really split and do half and half. If we're doing a delta force, which is the hydraulic downforce, that's something we got to do all the way across the bar. But one component that we can do is kind of split it up is if you got splitter rows like a 1223 or an interplant, that's something where we could do the delta force on just corn rows and then still leave springs or airbags on our bean rows if we don't want to get to that point just yet. So that's one component that can get kind of tricky is, yeah, we can do some half and half, but there's other components that we got to do it all. But if we're looking at SRM-based systems, the one product I'm probably going to recommend guys look towards first, it's probably going to be the V-drive, which is the electric drive, because delta force is probably the highest ROI, but when there's a module that we got to put on, if we're not using the 2020 to control the seating, example, hex shaft or hydraulic motors, we got to put this other component, this other module on to get seating data to the 2020, and it just, guys can get a little irritated. We're like, well, I put this whole module and this whole new harness on, we got to take that off and put all this other stuff on. So I would recommend starting with the V-drive, just so that way you can get all the harnessing on there first you need, and then from there you can add on virtually any other product from Precision.
Gotcha.
When it comes to trying things or putting new things on too, a lot of times our dealers, so Caleb has done some research into smart firmers. Caleb's going to have our new row cleaner on his planter this year, trying it out. And so, some of the things that aren't necessarily the electronic side of things, a lot of our dealers like Caleb will go in and actually run those trials and stuff. And so it's kind of neat for them to be able to share locally what's happening. We can have research farms all over the world, but everybody wants to know what happens right in their back door, right? And so it's great that our dealers are willing to do that for their customers and show them.
Yep, that's one component I forgot about. Yeah, the reveal. I did get one row of that, the frame-mounted row cleaner, so excited to try that out and see what emergence results we can get from that this year with having the row cleaner off the row unit and not affecting the ride of the row unit, so it should be interesting.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like to keep up with that PTI farm. Their website seems to be pretty nice, and they have a lot of nice videos there. So thank you guys both for coming on and kind of giving us a glimpse into what matters, because Joe Merschman will say it to anybody and everybody that the planter is the most important part to start. Yep. I mean, you can't fix a problem that a planter's made. So we firmly believe that the planter is the right place to start, and it's probably the thing that you should spend the most effort on during the winter time, getting it prepped for spring, because you start right there. The genetic potential of the seed drops as soon as the bag opens. So doing everything to the planter is extremely valuable. So we thank you both for being on here, Caleb and Gavin. How can guys get a hold of you? What are some plugs that you guys got for this coming year?
So I'm on More Planter Workers on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those. If you just look up More Planter Works, you should be able to find me. My logo is the same profile picture on all social media. It's just this logo right here. So yeah, you can get a hold of me there. Phone numbers all on social media as well too, email, anything. So yeah, if you're on those. If you're not, I can leave some business cards with these gentlemen if they want to get a hold of you or get a hold of them to get a hold of me. I can do that, or yeah, that's probably the best and easiest way.
You guys got any events coming up this summer that customers can be at?
So like we've been talking about and referencing, the PTI farm is Precision's Technology Institute, which is just their research farm over by Pontiac, Illinois. It's a 400-acre research farm and all kinds of different just agronomic. It's not just precision planting products the entire time you're there. There's a lot of just basic agronomy trials and different chemicals, like we're saying, in chemistries that they try out there just to give an honest, unbiased test as well. So yeah, they got dates to visit that all throughout late July to early September, pretty much. So that'll be coming up. And then also I'm putting on a planter clinic here March 14th. Getting a little late in the season, I know, but I figured try to do it a little later so that way all the information we cover there can kind of stay fresh to the guys with it coming up close on the season. But that's March 14th, 6 p.m. at my dad's shop in Primrose, Iowa. We'll have our planter there with the Delta Force electric drive, smart firmers, a lot of different parts and pieces on that planter that you can kind of come see firsthand and see how everything mounts on the planter and everything, just see it physical in person. So,
well, we appreciate both of you guys taking time to be with us today. And as always, we appreciate our viewers watching in or listening in on podcast. And we appreciate your business, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.